Okay, so for today, I really want to talk about a couple of things that are more foundational in the pursuit of spirituality. And that is what is true, what is reality, and how to understand the game at hand, right? So, from my point of view, and when I'm speaking, when I'm talking, when I'm teaching other guys, and I approach it from this perspective that first and foremost, I'm a spirit. I'm a spirit coming down, and I'm living in this body. And this is my experience. And there's a game to this. My truth, my belief, you want to call it, is that I've done this many, many, many lifetimes before. I can recall several previous lifetimes, at least two that I can immediately think of, where I've jumped in, I've jumped down to earth into some expression, some physical expression, some body, and bada bing, bada boom, here I am, here I go. We're going to play it again. And we want to understand what the game is so we don't get lost or trapped into pursuing fruitless ends or pursuing things that don't better us today. What I'm finding a lot when I go on YouTube and I look at spirituality is astral projections, the feminine and the masculine energies, um, sage smudging, sound bowls, Tibetan bowls, which full transparency, I do listen to every now and then. Um, there's a lot of complexity in spirituality right now where you can get lost for decades and decades and decades, and your life is none the better for it. You don't have any more control over your life, but you're incredibly spiritual. You can lucid dream, you can astral project, you can do all these amazing sort of feats, right? You clairvoyance, all that great state. What was it? The Gateway Experiment, the something institute. Anyways, where they could remote view, right? You have these amazing, amazing abilities that are documented, where people can do amazing things as a spirit, and it precipitates here in the real world. However, what does any of that? What worth is that of value to you if you can astral project and you can lucid dream and you can do all sorts of crazy cool things, but your life is a shit show, right? Your life is a shit show because you can't take responsibility for anything. You have an addiction to cigarettes or pornography or gambling or you video gaming, you name it. And I speak from experience when I say I'm free from most of all that stuff. Video games, I still play every now and then, but the point of it is, what point is your spirituality when you're no better qualitatively than the people who don't give a rat's ass about spirituality, right? Or even when the people who are completely ignorant to the higher things, to the arcane knowledge, they haven't read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They haven't read the Tibetan Book of the Dead or, her Triscus. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The hermetic, whatever. Anyways, point is, what's the point of it all? What's the point of it all if it doesn't bring you a practical realization of those effects today? How do you better yourself today? How do you control your energy today? And that energy can be in the form of emotions. That energy can be in the form of awareness, focus, attention, whatever you want to call it. It could be in the form of your habits or lack thereof. Um, your energy, can you take full responsibility, take control, and direct your energy where you want it to go? So, long preamble out of the way. That's my point of view. Is I'm a spirit first. And I'm playing this game, and it's fun. And so let's dig into it. Let's dig into. Let me transition the scene over to okay. Circle of truth. This is the game of spirituality. So let me zoom in here. Whoa, all right. Now we'll move some things around and we'll get. Let me see here. There we go. Can you see that? Bam. Okay. This is an individual circle of truth. What do I mean by that? Your circle of truth is not reality. It is. These are all true for you. So imagine, have you ever seen the movie Bubble Boy? And if you haven't, you can just imagine this person is sick and he has to live in a protective bubble, right? Now imagine that is your circle of truth. You have this bubble around you of all these things that you've decided from at one point or another is true for you. I have a couple examples here on the screen. Childhood trauma. Your stepdad or your father beat the shit out of you. You're going to have some childhood trauma. Okay. Agreeing to others' truths. That could include societal or cultural or religious truths. What is or what isn't true about the world around you. You could agree, for an example, yeah, your friend's wife is a nag. Okay, you're going to live that out whenever you interact and go over to their house. You're going to be annoyed whenever she opens her mouth. Spending time with the girlfriend is boring. You're going to, when you come home from college or work, instead of spending time with your girlfriend, you're going to spend time with your boys on Discord and you're going to play some video games or watch fights or do whatever. But these are all decisions that at some point or another, someone has decided is true for them. Now, all of these, now this is just an example, but imagine your bubble boy and all across the surface of your little bubble, you have thousands of things that are true. You have thousands of things that are true. And those thousands of decisions or truths for you are the filters from of which you experience life. In the game of spirituality, the reason why, in my position is a reason why we as spirits come in here, come down into earth, and we play this game of, this wonderful, very rich, vast, endless game of possibilities, is there are an infinite number of permutations of truth that a person can have. On top of just the physical manifestations of a person that a person can have, height, all their different characteristics, weight, strength, you also have these truths which can shape your reality. And when I go to reality, that means things that I'm agreeing with other people on. So when I agree to someone else's truth, I start creating reality. So the game of spirituality, in my point of view, is to become as free as possible of all these blockages or all of these things that I am unknowingly agreeing to. And let me just shift this down here. Okay. Your truth can be unconscious or they could be conscious truths. And the game of spirituality is you're trying to shift from unconscious truth to conscious truth, right? You want to be here. You want to be as conscious as possible, as long as possible, every single day. And your truths, remember what I was telling you in my other video, is you have these orbits. And these orbits start off with the individual, and then they expand. Okay? So you have the center orbit, which is you, the individual. You have this second orbit, which is like your immediate family members or surrounding friends or family. And then the larger one here, the outer ring here, is your community orbit. What type of community do you subscribe to? This could be online community. This could be your religious community. This could be, you have it, whatever you want to call it. This is up to you to define. And these truths, going back to my circle of truth here, and I just noticed that I didn't have the orbits. So these are the orbits I was talking about. So just real quick rehash. This is you, the individual. This is your immediate family, your immediate context. So family members, close friends or family, and then your community, whatever you decide. All right. So these truths, there we go, that a person can decide upon, whether they're unconscious truths or conscious truths, the idea is to increase your survivability. Survivability. There we go. So you're supposed to increase your survivability, right? Over time. And your truths, if they're optimal, will increase your survivability in the long term. Now, and these are conscious truths. If they're conscious, you hope that they're optimal to increase your survivability. But let me just go back, drag this down here. A common one, a lot of people have, I would say probably everybody has, childhood trauma in some way, shape, or form. Most likely, you're not aware of what that trauma is. So that's going to be your unconscious truth, right? That's going to be an unconscious truth, because that truth at that time only focused on the individual survivability in the immediate context that the trauma was experienced. Let me just drag this down here again. So that childhood trauma, all the way, it only focuses on that individual survivability, but only in the immediate context of the trauma. So that truth now, let's say you broke a leg when you were 3 years old riding a bike. You are forever wary of bikes. You're shy around any sort of physical activities. And now this childhood trauma. You've made several decisions to always be safe, err on the side of safety at all things, even to the point of never experiencing those experiences that adrenaline junkies will chase. So your childhood trauma is now affecting you to this day. But you feel left out. Your circle of friends, they don't include you anymore on hiking or anything, any of these physical activities, because they know you're going to say no. Or if you go, you're incredibly burdensome to deal with. So your childhood trauma, when it was unconsciously made, still lingers to this day, and is actually decreasing your survivability across the long haul. Oh my goodness, what in the world? All right. Bear with me here. Thank you, guys. Okay. So this is your survivability on the unconscious side of things. Unconscious truth against, tracked against the long term will decrease your survivability across all spectrums. Okay. Let's see here. This presentation, we're going to figure this out. So, yeah. So unconscious truth will tend to be suboptimal and decrease your survivability across all orbits against the long time, against the overall trend. So the game of spirituality is trying to shift as much as possible from unconscious truth to conscious truth. That means somehow or another, you're going to have to look and find all these childhood dramas. You're going to have to find out, are your behaviors today, are they influenced by others, someone else's lived experience, someone else's lived truth? Or are you agreeing to societal, cultural, religious truth? So you can think of like white nationalism, right? You can think of Marxism, communism. You can think of Christianity, Catholicism, Islam. These are all, when you agree to those truths, you apply them to your little bubble boy, right? You apply them to your circle of truth, and you live that out. So this is the game. If you can clear all this stuff up, right? Let's say we can clear up all this stuff. We've cleared up some childhood traumas. We've cleared up some of our cultural religious beliefs, more or less. So now I have all those truths. I've moved them from unconscious. I've shifted from unconscious truth, and now I can now say, hey, look, you know what? Actually, I do believe in Christianity. I do believe in everything they say, but I've examined it. I've done the work. I've I've looked into the history. I've looked into the context. I read the life and time of Jesus, that large piece of historical work, and I've shifted from unconscious truth to all the way over here to conscious truth. And this is where you want to be. It doesn't matter what you're agreeing to. Just make sure it's conscious. Make sure it's conscious. Make sure it's optimal. Make sure your survivability on the long term is increasing. This is the game of spirituality at hand. It's not about having no attachments. It's not about having no emotions. It's not about any of that. We'll dig into that deeper, but that's not the game. Look into Stoicism. Look into Buddhism. Look into that, and you then have to look into the immediate context from which those philosophies came from. But if you can do work today to transform your unconscious truths and look at them, confront them for what they are, confront your childhood traumas if you can find them, and then say, you know what, that's no longer serving me. And then you can move that. It's like, you know what, because that's no longer serving me, I'm going to make some new decisions. I don't need to be afraid as much, of physical activity, for example. So that's the game. Now that you've hopefully watched the end of this video. If you have, awesome. A little bit of practical exercise. If you can, take a pen and paper. I don't know if you have a journal or a pad of paper, sheet of paper. Write down what is true for you. It could be anything. Coffee is tasty. I love coffee. Try to write them in the positive aspect, not in a negative aspect. Like for example, I am poor versus I don't have money. Right? Don't write I don't have money. Right? I am poor. Right? So those are truths. So try to write them in the positive aspect, in the positive direction, and not the negative. And we'll explain that later in further videos. But just take my word for it. That's your practice for today. Apply this, and my recommendation: just take 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. If you don't, I wouldn't do this any more than 10 minutes. Um, you just really don't want to overdo this. Just write out everything that's true to you that comes to mind, even all the silly small stuff. This isn't like groundbreaking um, an exercise. You're not going to have any sort of, I mean, you might, but it's not for garnering an epiphany about your life or anything like that. But just start looking, practicing looking at what is true for you. So if you could do that, do it. I wish you all the best. Leave me any comments if you have. Like and subscribe, as YouTube likes to make sure it's in the videos. Anyways, we'll be talking soon.